So in full disclosure, I don't know how to do this crap. I'm just kind of doing it to help. So if I screw up and not proper, I don't have name tags, I don't have that stuff, this is the first time, so just understand. I sent an invite initially to all 4 Hartford Union High School candidates. Heard back from 3 of them. Adam Majerus is on vacation, had that scheduled way in advance of this, and so he has sent his answers in to be read, and my Neasley voice is gonna read them, sorry. Never heard from from Ken. He read the message on Friday, didn't hear back if he was gonna join us or wanted to have the questions answered, so we'll go with that. Jay and Tiffany are here, and then a local Facebook group suggested that inviting and asking questions to the joint 1 candidates would be helpful for people who have not voted yet already. So that's why we invited Louise and Niza to
No
do
worries.
that. Okay,
I get all of it.
trust me with my name, it gets butchered too. Okay, so we'll start. I'm gonna try and rotate it as best as possible, but again, my mind's a lot other places right now in my life, so let's just start right there. I'm not gonna do the introductions. We've done 3 or 4 times already, if that's fair. And I'm gonna read questions that they got ahead of time, and then questions that somebody had sent in after I had given them the questions that I think are more pertinent, that might work for you guys better. We can skip them, whatever you guys want, I don't know. Please share some examples how you have supported HUHS in recent years with volunteer service. I'll read Adam's first this time. Booster Club, Vice President, dozens of concession stand shifts over the last 5 years, presenter at the college and career fair for several years, mock job interviewer, career presenter for the Oriole Time sessions in 2025, PA announcer for JV varsity wrestling, clock operator for varsity football, lead contact for Hartford Joint 1 for HUHS Day of Service. Jenny.
So I was on the Citizens Advisory Committee for roughly, from the inception of that for about 18 months. That group really orchestrated and drove the referendum that was just successfully passed in November. I am the president of the Hartford Youth Football Club, and then we work hand in hand with the Hartford Gridiron, which is the high school football program. I'm currently on the athletic council with our athletic director, Scott Helms. We look at different aspects of the athletic department, such as coaches' handbooks, potential Hall of Fame, things like that. I'm on the Booster Club where I help out in concessions, and then I've also been a member of the Hartford Wrestling Club board for several years, and while that is a youth program, we work hand in hand with the high school program as well.
Tiffany.
I don't have a whole lot of volunteer experience directly with the high school, aside from being a student at the high school when I was there. I have also done volunteer hours in the concession stand to support my sons in golf, in soccer, and my daughters in basketball, so I have done some of those things to kind of help there. But I have a lot of experience as a team manager with the Hartford United Soccer Club. I have a lot of experience with, I ran the NJHS, National Junior Honor Society program at Central Middle School. I have volunteered with the Hartford Basketball Club tournament for the last, I think, 6 years. And I was originally planning to be part of the Citizens Advisory Committee, but I had too many conflicts with kids sporting events and meetings for my school and things like that, that I was not able to commit to that, so.
Okay, for you guys, I'm gonna ask the first one. I thought was probably the best question I saw. Transparency is important where allowed, but confidentiality is a major responsibility of a school board member. From closed sessions to private student or personnel information to expulsion hearings and more, how confident are you in yourself that you'll be able to uphold this responsibility to protect the district that you want to represent as staff and students by not falling to pressures to appease others or engage in gossip?
Want me to start?
Yep.
Okay.
Sorry.
Louise Trunk. Policies are our guidance. Policies direct us to what we can and can't do. Our policies right now are, we have board meetings And from there, that is all we really meet and greet with people. I am out in the public because I have children in Joint 1 and at HUHS. And if people come up to me and want to have questions about things that are going on in our district, I have a business card for our district administrator, and I kindly pass it to them and ask them to contact her if they have additional questions, especially if it pertains to something that is definitely confidential.
Agreed, yes, policies are definitely something to be followed. I mean, rules are set in place for a reason. We, as a school board, we are supposed to make sure that those policies are in accordance to what needs to be done, and if somebody comes with certain grievances or anything, there should be, obviously, I think, being able to listen to them, have a listening ear and everything, not necessarily direct them to like, oh, I can do this or I can't do that or anything, but we will see what we can do, but I cannot make any promises. I guess going for the fact that when it comes to confidentiality, I think that is definitely key, because obviously we want to make sure that people are able to trust us as a school, as school board members. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, skip it ahead. Back to Jenny and Tiffany. How would you foster a school culture that both supports teachers' professional autonomy and maintains the high expectations for student outcomes?
Do you want me to go?
Yep.
Okay, all right, so I think that we have to focus on 3 key things. We have to focus on trust, we have to focus on collaboration, and we have to focus on clear expectations. In order to foster trust, I think that we have to lead by example and make sure that we are creating a safe space for our staff where feedback is welcomed. We have to build strong relationships among staff and teachers and administrators so that everyone feels valued and empowered. Collaboration, teachers learn from teachers, and I think that having that kind of relationship is very important and is vital. Professional development for our staffs, and having high expectations. I think we need to really foster a growth mindset within our school. We have to set clear and measurable goals for staff and students, and then I think that can really help us with that autonomy and those high expectations that will eventually fold into student outcomes.
Okay, so to foster a school culture that supports our teachers' professional autonomy, but still maintaining those high expectations that we as community want to see within our students, it's essential to kind of strike a balance, I guess you could say, between giving teachers the freedom to innovate, but still making sure that they are aligning with the school-wide goals. Doing that, like providing dedicated time for curriculum work and collaboration. As a teacher, I understand that there's never enough time for us to collaborate and truly meet the goals that we really want to do. So making sure that we have enough time for our teachers to collaborate, work together, to find innovative practices that they can implement within their classrooms. Making sure that we have a clear focus and key standards. As a teacher, I always have a set list of standards that I am trying to achieve, and holding my students to that high standard to make sure that they are ready for the next level. As a district, we need to do the same thing for our students within each curriculum area. And then making sure that we provide enough opportunities for professional growth. Our teachers, our educators, their passion is learning, and they need to be provided that opportunity to make sure that they can continue learning and growing as well.
Adam answered, this is more of an administrative question. Having said that, if staff and administration is frequently and actively communicating about the curriculum purchased and put in place, how opportunities for enhancing lessons with the teacher, creativity can add to learning, can agree on what student success looks like, and how to help those struggling to learn and grow, I think culture will be positive. Next one I'm going to use for all 4 of you, if you don't mind, because I think it applies to life experiences. What experiences have prepared you to navigate difficult conversations about resource allocation when addressing competing priorities within our district? I'm gonna let Louise go first.
Oh, sure.
Sorry.
That's okay. Okay, experiences for resource allocation. So I know right now, Hartford Joint 1 and the high school collaborate already with resources. We do our best we can financially to try and partner together so that we are using the best of our funds since there's so little in education right now. With the allocation, the other thing we do as a district right now is, we have our Fund 46 and all of these different funds that we have to have for the school district. We really try to prioritize the needs of the kids first. And we know that our special ed is high, so unfortunately, that means that that chunk of money goes there first, and then we have to figure out what to do with the rest of it. We take grants. Our school district is incredible about finding grants so that we can pay for other things that are necessary for our children.
Nathan?
Cool. I am pretty new to, well, very new, let's be real. I'm very new to the school board and the policies and everything, so I can't speak for everything that has been done with all of it, but I do know the community has been great with collaboration. I have heard a lot of great things when it comes to the schools and reusing resources, and from what I've been learning very quickly that we do have a lot of ways to allocate all those resources, as Louise was saying. That being said, I do think that there is always more ways to maybe involve the community, maybe involve the businesses within it to help grow and kind of collaborate just between community and schools in that way. So.
Tiffany?
All right. Many people probably don't know this, but I have experience as a center director for a national childcare preschool company where I had to manage a budget. I had to have those difficult conversations. I had to prioritize resources to make sure that the needs of my students were being met. I had roughly 500 students, so not nearly as big as the high school is, but I understand that sometimes those tough decisions need to be made. I'm not afraid of having those difficult conversations, but I think the most important part when having those conversations is making sure that we are addressing those priorities with honesty and transparency, making sure that we're clearly communicating the needs of our district and providing the necessary information to all the stakeholders that are involved. I think that we can, when we are being transparent and sharing that information that's relevant to the stakeholders, we can definitely make sure that we are providing, a more collaborative effort and understanding where the resources for our school district need to be.
Dave?
So most of these conversations typically happen at the admin or school board level, so I don't have any direct experience with that. But I have been a classroom teacher for 20 years, and I have been on the flip side of those discussions where we've been wanting money for items in our classrooms. So those kind of discussions have given me some insights into needs and the priorities that educators face daily. I think that going in and addressing that, if I am elected to the board, I have to go in with an open mind, and I also need to respect the differences between needs and wants. There's a lot of things that teachers want for their classroom, and when it comes down to budgets and funding is very limited for school districts already, we really have to address the needs before we address those wants. So I think we just need to focus, we need to remain focused on what is essential for the student's success when addressing those and having those conversations.
Okay. Adam responded with, the board does have a role in financial resource allocation and budgeting. I think it is important that the board works to determine what the board's priorities are so we can communicate those expectations to the administrative team. I have been in financial administration leader of 4 organizations, including the last 6 years as the business manager of the largest school district in the Hartford area, measured by both students and total budget. I have this responsibility currently in my district. If I am elected, I think it would be a great opportunity to add financial management strength to the HUHS board. I'm going to jump to the next one I thought was fun. And these questions all came from people in Hartford sent them to me. I didn't write any of these, which is makes my job easy. Given that this will be for all 4 of you because it applies. Given that board members must work collaboratively, you know what word I mean, collaboratively?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Despite potential differences in educational philosophy, describe how you would approach a situation where your personal position on an important issue is outvoted 4-1 by your colleagues. And I assume that it's 4 to, is it 5 for you guys? I don't, okay, good, so the numbers might work out. Let's have, Liza go first.
Can you repeat that question?
Yep. Given that board members must work collaboratively despite potential differences in educational philosophy, describe how you would approach a situation where your personal position on an important issue is outvoted 4-1 by your colleagues.
Obviously, professionalism is very, very key. I would only just be one of those board members, so I don't have any power with just being an individual member. It is the collaborative effort of the school board that would be the ultimate decision for any of those policies. And if I had a personal difference, I would professionally state that, saying when it is time for discussion, and state that I feel that this might lead to this, but be gracious in the fact that if it is a majority, or if it's a almost majority vote, then kindly will play it out, and that is perfectly fine with me.
Cool. Let's keep it to joint one, Louise.
I personally have this situation. So the challenge is you have a voice. I'm a constituent, I'm a constituent for all of you. So if I firmly believe that something is good for the children of joint one, I'm going to vote for that, yay or nay, depending on what the situation is. And that's going to be my vote. That is the benefit of a board of 5. You have 5 votes, and you all should vote the way you feel that's the best decision for your organization, for your constituents, and for yourself, so that you can go home at night and go, I did the best I can do. And so it's a hard decision. You want to sway and be like, oh, everyone else voted. No, I already come into the meeting, I plan the meetings, I read all the agenda and the packets, and I know how I'm going to vote. If I have a question about controversy, I have that conversation with my district administrator before the board meeting. So I already know going into it if there's other people that are kind of wavering, because she does share that there might be discussion that might happen during this particular action item. So I'm prepared, but I never back down. And I always say my truth. Thank you.
I'll read Adam's and then let you guys answer. This can happen on a regular basis. As a board member, I would work to understand the issue as presented by administration and use my experience and knowledge to vote in order to best support the students in the organization and community. I would certainly share my perspective on a matter where there's disagreement, but in the end, majority rules, and I would absolutely support the decisions made by the group. Our district and its stakeholders deserve a board and management that can weigh all the options, respect there are several perspectives on a matter, make a decision, move forward, and if we need to, of course, correct down the road, we can take appropriate action at that time. Tim.
Kind of like what Louise said, I think I would approach it from that standpoint. Are we doing what's best for children, what's best for our students, and what's best for our community? If that decision is truly in the best interest of students and how it's going to impact them. And I would encourage the board members to think about that and reflect on that before coming to a final vote. If after thoughtful consideration, the majority of the board still feels that same way, I would respect their decisions, because ultimately we have to work together. And I would respect that outcome, at least for the time being. I would possibly look at addressing that issue again later on down the line if a need arose. As a board member, I recognize we all have differing opinions, we all have differing ideas, and that's part of that collaborative process. So our ultimate responsibility, though, is to make sure that we're doing what's best for our students and for our community. If we can honestly stand behind that decision and we think that we are doing that, then I have to accept the results of that decision and agree to disagree at that point.
Ladies. Right, so board members, right, we're elected as individuals, and I think we all have issues and things that we are passionate about that are priorities to us. Being outvoted 4-1 by colleagues, while frustrating, the best thing that I can do is just to continue to share my thoughts and my feelings on why I feel that way, whether I'm able to sway somebody or not. Kind of like Louise said, I am known as a little spitfire, and I don't back down from something that I'm very passionate about. While I say that, that doesn't mean that I can't be persuaded the other way as well. But I think that as a board, we are judged on what we can accomplish together as a group and not what we can try to accomplish by it being an individual.
Very good. For all four of you, and I'll read Adam's first this time. Describe a time that you had to make an unpopular decision that you believe was in the best interest of students. Granted, I think Luis is the only one that's an active or former board member, so you might have had experience. What was your reasoning process and how did you handle any pushback? Adam responded, as a board member for HJT1, for any school board member, there are decisions that can be unpopular for students, for families, for staff, and for the community. For example, decisions to not renew staff are difficult because it is one of our teammates' livelihoods involved. However, the district must balance that responsibility against what is best for students and families to ensure we have the best, highest quality staff available to meet our needs so students can most effectively learn and grow. Clear, timely communication usually diffuses any pushback I received, and most people are understanding that we are always trying to do our best work every day. Let's start with Jenny on this one.
So I wanted to, I haven't really, as a teacher, you know, I've made decisions that have impacted my kids and my students. So I really had to think outside the box here. So I wanted to share my experience from April of 2022 when our district had proposed an athletic facilities referendum. At that time and currently we live in a very conservative district where referendums often we struggle to gain their support. I had anticipated that pursuing the referendum was going to be challenging, but I firmly had believed that updating our athletic facilities was essential. So the referendum did not pass. And so in response to that, I just didn't say, okay, oh well, our community didn't support that. I wanted to be proactive and I did take steps to engage with our community. I joined the CFAC, which was the Facilities Advisory Committee. We listened to the feedback from our community, and then that helped us to understand some concerns that was lying within the field referendum. And then I also established a community group on my own that was dedicated to providing factual and transparent information regarding the referendum. And I truly believe that having that group that was about 600 strong really did help pass that referendum in the end. I'm not saying that it's the only thing that helped, but yeah, it was an unpopular decision that failed, and I feel like we really came out on the top end of that later.
Tiffany.
All right, obviously I don't have the school board experience either, but I did approach this question from the lens of a teacher because every single day I am tasked with making a decision of making some decision that a student may or may not be on board with. So I used the example of my grading policies. You know, I had been kind of following with what the high school guidelines were and allowing late work to be submitted at least as long as it's submitted by the end of the term. But after a while I noticed, and I did this a couple of years ago, but I noticed after a while that I was consistently getting late work from students. It led to poor time management skills within our students. It led to a lack of responsibility and accountability for our students. And I ultimately decided that I had to make changes to that grading policy. So I announced my changes to my students that they had a limited time to get missing or late work in, that they had to, if they turned in later missing work, they would be losing points on their overall score for an assessment. And while my students and some of their parents contacted me rather angrily about that decision, ultimately I did what I thought was best for my students, which was holding them accountable, teaching them responsibility and time management skills. So, you know, as a school board member, I would approach those decisions the same way. I'm going to always look at something that might be controversial and always try to determine if this doing whatever it is best for our students and our community. And ultimately, I will stand behind that decision and carry out those discussions, those difficult discussions with constituents, parents, whoever, when the time is necessary.
Okay, Louise?
Oh, unpopular decisions, those are so fun. So I have wrote down 4 that we had. I agree with Adam, non-renewals is always a challenge. Superintendent hire, that was challenging because we were not, in the end, we were of course a 5-0 vote because we agreed going into the hire that we all had to agree. Even if we didn't agree, we had to at least come to the point where we all agreed on that last candidate, and that was very, very challenging and many meetings to get that 5-0 vote. We also just passed our referendum, which was also a challenge, but what helped is learning from the CFAC committee, which I was also on, was you have to be in front of the people of Hartford. And so by having those conversations with our board in our district saying, hey, we need to go to Maxwell Street Days. We need to go out and be in the public for people so that they can see us and ask questions. We had to go to them instead of them coming to us. That was a huge thing for both referendums to pass. I truly believe that. We just had to be out in the public. The other thing that was very unpopular that I'm excited to say is happening is 4K. When I first got on the board 3 years ago, that was my passion. I really wanted to bring 4K back to our district. I didn't like that it was in the daycare centers, even though I want to partner with them. I just felt like we were losing those kids then, not having them in 4K. In our schools, walking around the hallways and meeting teachers and knowing our principals. So that was a hard decision. It was unpopular, but we got it to pass after much conversation. So do I think it's gonna be successful? I hope so. We're gonna make it, you know, we're gonna do the best we can, and like we said, if there's something that doesn't work, we're gonna have more conversation and hopefully make it better. But you have to agree with the decision and move forward, and hopefully it's the right decision. Thanks.
I'm gonna have you repeat the question just to make sure.
Forgot which one it was.
Collaborate.
Oh, describe a
Unpopular
time when you
decisions.
had when you had to make an unpopular decision that you believe was in the best interest of students. If you have been on the board or a teacher, it's a little harder for you, obviously. What was your reasoning process and how did you handle pushback?
So yes, I don't have experience from the school board perspective, but I am a private teacher from my home, as well as I am the main music director for the Shower Arts Center Children's Theater. So we get a lot of decisions in that regard when it comes to either children or parents or policies of how to actually go forward with different productions. I guess a couple of examples. Privately, since I do get to work, I do get that really awesome idea of concept of working with children individually. Some of the kids don't like what I pick for them when it comes to music, and they can be very, very headstrong about it. And at the same time, I do understand there are some things that I personally have that I have experience and I want them to teach, and they may not understand it. And compromising is definitely key when it comes to those kids, and definitely saying, hey, so if you want to do this song, what song would you like? Perfect, this is the song that you want, I'll work with you. I would also like then that you could also work with me and work on this other piece as well at the same time. And as long as you're working on both, I'm fine. So, and then just showing that, and then obviously if they decide to abuse that kind of an idea and then work on just the one song and then fail on the other, then we have to reassess and we have a wonderful chat afterwards. When it comes to production team, at the Shower Center, we have lots of meetings of figuring out of how to do rehearsals, what worked last production, what didn't work, if we should do certain things certain ways, or if we shouldn't. And so there's a lot of discussion when it comes to all of these, and sometimes we don't agree. We don't agree with sometimes with maybe who we hire or anything, or some of the kids that may not be working as well. And it's one of those you just have to continue discussing with each other, so we all are on the same mentality, and then bringing it up with potentially the staff or the teachers or the students, and telling them, hey, we gotta change this a little bit and work on this approach, because otherwise, I mean, we have to hold you accountable for the actions that you're doing, because we are definitely trying to create a team effort of a wonderful production. And if you can't be on board with that, then we will have to discuss that with the parents or whoever is supposed to be next, so, and they normally get on board, because after a while you kind of let them see, and as the production gets closer, they start to understand, oh, this is a team effort, this is something that maybe they should be on board, and and so they get to understand, and almost have to kill it with kindness and sense when it comes to it, but but most of the time, those unpopular decisions, they decide to kind of understand where we're coming from.
Cool. Okay, this one, the person who sent it in and I disagreed with how they worded it, so we had to word it a couple times, so it's very presumptive, so can you just answer it based upon information that's been shared to this point? How do you plan to rebuild trust between school board, administration, teachers, and community during this transition period? I
Just let
disagree.
the high school deal with that. We're good on our side.
I'll read Adam's first this time. I think I read his last. So, if by transition period the author means our current leadership situation, I think it depends if there is a superintendent opening or not. If the district needs to hire a new superintendent, the hiring process could help rebuild trust. I would expect to go through a full search and hiring process. I think there will be opportunities for staff and administration involvement, community involvement, and student involvement, but the final decision would belong to the school board. The district has survey data regarding what is important in a superintendent and in the school district as a whole. Proper constructive communication is critical, and I think the parties are excited to get started to move forward. Again, nothing official has been done. There's so many rumors in town, so if you could just answer it based upon what the school has said, as opposed to what innuendo has been made in town.
Absolutely.
Sure. So I can go. So I think first we have a lot of work that we have to do to rebuild trust. I think that as a community member, red flags were raised by staff and community members with our current Board of Education about our current district administrator 3 years ago. Nothing had happened at that point, nothing had changed. So here we are 3 years later, and I feel like voices are finally now being heard. So like I said, I think that our board has a lot of work to do to rebuild that trust. We need to be transparent. We need to communicate updates so that those can be shared openly. I know that there was an update that was made to staff members. I'm considered a staff member because I do book, and which is a whole nother issue. But because I score a book for like basketball games and wrestling games, I get all of the staff emails. So I was made aware that our district administrator was put on a leave of absence. I'm disappointed that nothing has been made to our community or from a parent perspective. I got nothing received as a parent. So I'm a little disappointed in that, and not even that I'm asking for information that I need to know the dirt of what's going on, but I think parents at least deserve to know that our district is functioning without the leader that they had hired to do that job. And I think that we've been having surveys and information's been shared, forms have been put together, and I think that we can navigate this transition effectively to try to restore that trust that has been broken, but there is a lot of work that has to be done.
So I guess I don't want to say rebuilding trust, but I think just to have a trusting relationship with your school board members, there has to be transparency. As a staff member at Joint 1 when I worked there, as a parent for students at Joint 1, Hartford High School, now Honor School District, it's really essential to make sure that you are sharing pertinent information with your stakeholders to make sure that they are well aware of what they need to know. Obviously, when it comes to personnel issues, we can't share the specifics of certain details, and that stuff needs to remain confidential. However, making sure that we have that clear communication is essential for maintaining and restoring trust if necessary. It seems that there have been some half-truths that have been told in the past, and that needs to change with our our upcoming school board. We need to be forthcoming with information, share the rationale behind decisions when we can, and clearly outline our desired outcomes when it comes to making decisions that the school board is tasked with. If we can ensure transparency in our actions and our decisions, we can foster that environment of mutual respect and collaboration among all of our stakeholders, teachers, staff, administrators, parents, all community members. And it's only through that open and honest dialogue that we can have as a board with our constituents that we can rebuild that trust, that we move forward together.
This one was not asked to Adam, so unfair to him, I apologize. I like it though. An effective board member is a consistently engaged board member who takes the time to stay up to date, active, always shows up and prepares for board meetings in advance and not on the fly. It is much more than just attending a single meeting a month. Are you up for the challenge of dedicating the necessary time needed for the constituents to be able to rely on you? I'll start with Tiffany.
We didn't have that
Nope.
question either. No, but yeah, I think, going into this decision, I had a long conversation with my husband, knowing that the task of being a board member is going to be more than just one meeting a month. But we are invested in this community. We are committed to seeing the success of all students in this community. And I think that we are both well aware of the obligation that being on the school board requires. So as far as being invested, showing up for our students, showing up for our community, I'm all in, and I guess that's who I am.
Louise?
Being a school board member, so I know Joint One as well as Hartford Union High is part of Wisconsin Association of School Boards. And what's wonderful about that partnership is they have onboarding for new board members. That will be in April. So obviously if I win, I'll be going. So if the candidates that win at the high school, we can all ride together. It's down in Pewaukee. I think it's like April 17th. But what's great about that is you collaborate with all the other new board members that are like, what did I just do? Deer in headlights kind of thing. And it's a great meeting. You'll have all the tools with WASB. Right now they have capital chats every Friday, so I always watch those. I always read my board packet as soon as it comes out. I'm ready to have my discussion with my superintendent. There's also several meetings. There's an annual conference for the entire 421 districts in Wisconsin in January. That school board convention is really critical as a board member to be a part of. It is for us. And so anytime there are meetings and programs available to be a better board member, you should be doing that. They also have magazines that come out monthly, and I read all of those too to see what other schools are doing to help remind me, what do we want? Cool, what did, such and such school do? We should look at something into that. So I can have that conversation with my district administrator to make sure that we are continuing to enhance our district.
Nice.
When it first came to fruition with me, my husband actually came up to me and said, you should do this. And I looked at him like, do you understand what you're asking me? Because at the time, I currently have a 3-year-old, so there's that. He's a wild one. But then since I also private teach in my home, I also work as a music director at the Shower Center. I also am the children's ministry coordinator for my church. And then I also do several other things in other cities, musically inclined normally, as well as trying to keep a house and 2 dogs and 3 chickens and a child all alive in the same breath of a day. So I looked at him and I'm like, that you are asking me for something. But he and I both agreed that at the same time, my passion has always been for kids, clearly from the stuff that I do. And it's one of those, especially with my 3-year-old, there has been more conversations with how is he going to be growing up? How is he going to be building himself? Who are the people that he's going to be collaborating with? And so it was a very conscious decision that I should at least try to run because I'm doing it for these next generations, because they are going to be the ones that are running the country later on, running our city. And I've worked with them for so many years, and I've seen the ups and downs and their struggles and their wins and the things that the reports that I've seen as of late now too, it kind of can be a little bit concerning. So, so it was one of those that I had to at least see if I could help with that in the school board format, so.
Okay.
I have been toying with the idea of running for school board for the last couple of years. I had friends and community members asking me, and it's a decision that I didn't take lightly. And so finally over the last year, my husband and I really consciously thought about it, and I had made the decision in December to run. I realized that it is a big undertaking. It's more than just showing up once a month for a meeting. For anybody that knows me, I give 110% to anything and everything that I do, whether it's the Hartford football program, the Hartford wrestling club, whether it's the CFAC, whether it's the athletic council, whatever I do, whether it's my classroom. I'm always going above and beyond to make myself the best version of me that I can be. And so I realized that taking on this role isn't just gonna be a resume booster for me. I'm not doing it for any political gains at all. I'm not running on anyone else's agenda or policies that they want me to do. I'm solely running for myself as a mom, as a wife, and as a citizen who loves being a Hartford Oriole.
I got one more I wanna ask that they submitted. Does anybody here have questions that they wanna ask?
Do you wanna talk? Did you talk first?
I did.
Oh, jeez. What time is it?
No, I'm trying to wrap it up. Anybody have a question they wanna ask here? Amy, you sure? Okay, but I'll ask one last one. I think it was asked, I think it applies to all four. And I had never, I'll be honest, I didn't know there was a school board when I was in middle school. Never even occurred to me to ask these kind of questions, so I'm learning a lot here tonight. Given our recent challenges with student achievement and administrative turnover, what specific structural or systemic changes would you prioritize to ensure sustainable improvement rather than short-term fixes? Jen?
I will go, yeah. So I am super happy that at HUHS I've been to a majority of the board meetings over the last year or so, and I'm really happy to see that our student achievement is trending in the right direction. I think we've had a rough couple of years, but it's nice to see that trend is going up. I have confidence in the administration of our principals and of our curriculum and instruction and our teachers and the passion that they put into our schools. I think we need to remember too that it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. I really like analyzing, as dorky as this seems, all of the area state report cards that come out, and I love analyzing all of that data. I'm so proud to say that we are showing growth in that. There is work to do, but I think that we need to celebrate those little celebrations that we have. In terms of addressing the administrative turnover, I think that the board must be kept informed on the ongoing developments of what's happening behind the scenes within the walls. Board members aren't there every day, they're not in the classrooms, they're not there, communicating with everybody every day. And I think that there's been policies that have been put in place that have limited communication with staff and board members, which has since changed since the last board meeting. So I think that we really need to rely on staff communication to see how things are going and what's all happening within our walls. And I think that we just need to continue to invest in our staff. We need to support them, and we need to make sure that they're working in an environment that is safe and healthy and where they and students can thrive.
I think I would focus on four key areas. One of them is being the alignment of goals. So as Jenny mentioned, our recent data is showing academic growth, and Kelly Lamb recently reported on that in one of the school board meetings as well. We're making gains academically, and we are ahead of the state average. So in both English language arts and mathematics, we have grown significantly over the last several years. And I think it's really important to to take a look at our goals, make sure that we are adjusting those goals as we continue to move forward, and knowing that our students are making gains, so we are constantly raising that bar. And continue to work on establishing what key standards we want to address within our student population. Another thing is having that data-driven approach. As kind of like Jenny, I don't necessarily analyze the surrounding areas, school report cards, but I am very data-driven. I use data constantly within my classroom, and I think we need to continue to use that data to track progress and to continue to identify areas of improvement for our students. Not only looking at assessments, because that's just a small piece, but also looking at our teacher feedback, looking at monitoring and adjusting instructional strategies, ensuring that all of our students are getting the assistance that they need to be successful in high school. Another area is strengthening teacher support and collaboration. I touched on this earlier, but making sure that our teachers have that opportunity to collaborate and to grow, to share best practices, to continue to innovate their own instruction, as long as we can kind of stay ahead of that curve and provide our teachers with opportunities to continue learning and growing as well. We know that we're going to be giving our students the best. And the last piece is just focusing on our school culture. Continuing to nurture the positive school culture. Our surveys indicating that things are changing, especially our student surveys, that students are feeling better about their high school experience in the recent months. So making sure that we have that supportive environment for our students is really important. Making sure it's inclusive for, to ensure both academic success and our student well-being is really important. And then I think as far as staff goes, we need to maintain that clear line of communication between the staff and our school board. There's been limitations on how staff can communicate with school board members, and I think that really needs to change so that teachers can get a better pulse on what's actually happening and how, what the decisions that are being made, but it also needs to happen for the board members. We need to understand where our teachers are at and where their needs are. So making sure that we have that open and honest line of communication is really important. If we can do all those things, then I think we can really ensure that our school will continue to improve, will continue to make academic gains, and our community in the end will also improve.
Do you guys think that applies to you? I don't know, to be honest.
Yeah.
Okay, you want to answer?
Sure.
Okay.
So what I would say, the big key with Joint One is we need to collaborate. We do a great job collaborating with the high school, but we need to do more. We need to make sure our curriculum's aligned, because that's the one feedback we hear at the high school, at least what I've heard at school board meetings of the Hartford Union High, is they're very frustrated with incoming freshmen that there's 4 different curriculums for 4 different schools. And so we need to figure out how do we make sure that across the board, those kids are prepared to go to high school. That's been a challenge, but I really feel like we've been collaborating much better at Joint One. Specifically, I can speak on that. The other thing that I'll say on what they talked about with having the ability as a board member to really talk to the teachers and students, I'm kind of, that's hard for me, because being on the board for 3 years, I think the challenge is we have surveys, and I think that's the way really board members should go. The challenge is when you are going in as a board member to a school, and then how do you make the conversation go where it doesn't seem awkward for the staff? Because, I talk to the staff and but like, why are you there? And why should you be there? So I'm a little bit torn on wanting that. We do not have that at Joint One. We are not allowed to go into the district or the schools without authorization, and with a district member being with us. The other thing I'll say is our student achievement has certainly risen, and the goal is baby steps. Honestly, I think our biggest challenge right now is getting kids to go to school. Once they're in school, we can teach them, but the truancy is out of control across the United States. And how do we really, that's our biggest challenge, because once we get kids there, I think they'll learn, but it's getting them there. So if you got ideas, let us know.
I do believe my main focus is definitely the core academics and making sure that stays especially for Hartford Joint One, is just staying that focused for that, just because reports have shown that things have been increasing, but it's slow, and it's getting better, but we can always still push for a much more improved version of that, and just making sure that the kids are actually learning exactly how they're supposed to be doing, and curriculums are being full and in depth with them. I think I'll always ask for more ways to find ways to get children to focus on these basics, because that is how that's how they're gonna survive. When they grow up, they're gonna need to know, reading, writing, arithmetic, sciences, and social studies. And along with that, I know most kids also really enjoy extracurriculars, but that should be more like an added incentive for these students, that they should be able to do these extracurriculars so long as they are actually being accountable with those core academics. So I think that we could possibly push for that a little bit more. Along with that, continual communication with the parents, with the students, and I mean, I know there is definitely those policies that we can't just go up there and be like, hey, school board member, and freak them out a little bit. But just finding ways to even talk with the community, or if something comes up or that we hear, to actually make sure that it is brought up and suggested, and find ways to actually help continue bridging that communication for Hartford, Joint 1, and the school board. So, thank you.
Okay, one came in via text, I'll read it to you. Hey dummy, your video stopped. Could you please ask them how they would each handle bullying, both from the high school and the middle school level? I don't know that that's a school board thing, is it?
Well, it's
It
a
is?
policy thing,
Okay.
sure.
So they wanna know, how would you address it? And then I have one short one from the list over here, and then we'll be done.
I can start, sure. Bullying is something that happens, unfortunately, across the United States. So making sure that we have policies that address that directly. Clear consequences for students who are found bullying other students are essential and important. Making sure that they are enforced and consistent with that is also really important. I've seen too many times where exceptions are made because of whatever reason. We have to kind of put an end to bullying and make sure that our policies are put in place to make sure that they are protecting the victims, but also understanding the reasons behind why. Oftentimes, students that are bullies are being bullied as well. So understanding and making sure that we stop that cycle, trying to give them the support and help that they need to make sure that they are no longer bullied or being a bully.
Please.
We have 13 policies for Joint 1, because that was a question we had at our last forum. So the challenge is, it's exactly what Tiffany said, is most bullies are also being bullied. So it's the conversation of, if you follow your policies and make sure that every staff member is following the same policy, because that is the biggest challenge as board members and as districts, is you've got teachers that can handle it themselves in the classroom, and then you have teachers that can't. And so then it's not even across the board, and one kid gets away with something in one classroom and then doesn't get away with it in another, and they're confused. And so we really need to make sure that all staff members feel confident in what our policies are and follow through with them, because it will make the student much better, because they'll understand the rules.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I do think that bullying, there has to be that constant communication, there has to be that level of understanding from the student side, from the staff side, but at the same time, rules have to be placed, and there is always consequences for bullying, and because it can't be condoned. So it just needs to be one of those that obviously tread with care, I think, is probably the best way of saying that, is because you're not talking to the bully out of spite or hate necessarily. I think it's more that you have to talk to them and communicate that what they are doing is wrong, and why are you lashing out in that way, because unfortunately it will have consequences, and we will have to deal with that. But I also want to know that but the staff should also understand that it goes both ways. They have to care for the bully and care for the victim.
Yeah, and I think every child deserves to come to school and feel safe and feel respected. Bullying does happen. It happens in every community, in every school, at every grade level, right? And just how that bullying looks different, whether it's in person, whether it's via social media. I think it really just comes down to what are the policies that are put in place, and holding kids accountable for their actions and following through with those consequences. It's really black or white. You did it, you didn't do it, you did it, here's your consequence, and just following through with that as an administrative level. Because what happens is one child gets away with it, and then child B, it happens with them, and then there is no consequence for them. So they all had great things to say. I don't really know how much more I can add to that, but I think that our schools should be a safe place for our kids, so.
Okay, last question, pretty quick, we'll be done at 7:30. Did anyone, I'll amend it, did anyone or group encourage you to run for school board? Jenny?
No.
Tiffany?
No.
Louise?
No.
Nysa?
No.
Okay, we're done.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks for coming.
Go,
Appreciate it.
go.